Hello, everyone. Welcome to another virtual artist reception hosted by the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council. I'm Nicole DeBoer. I'm the director of the Arts Council. Tonight, we are showcasing, and I am proud to introduce this artist. We are showcasing Thomas Flynn. He is a local artist, local photographer. Thomas, give a little wave so they know he is. There he is. Awesome. So on this virtual artist reception, I'll just do a little rundown for our visitors who have joined us. I'm going to share with you Thomas's artist vision for this exhibit that is located in the Smock Gallery. And for those of you who are new to us, our acronym, we say SMOC, S-M-A-C, the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council. So if I say the word SMOC, you know what I mean. So his work is in the gallery. We are so excited to have it in the gallery. It is in the gallery now through October 25th. That is a Friday, coming up shortly in just a couple weeks. But that means you still have a couple weeks to get into our gallery. It is located in Marshall at 509 West Main Street in Marshall, Minnesota. We are open Monday through Friday, and we're open most generally from 9 to 12 and from 1 to 4. If you have a special or alternative time that you would like to stop in the gallery and see Thomas's work, give us a call and we can see what we could set up. We can be flexible. So tonight we are going to welcome Thomas. I'm going to read you his artist bio, his artist vision for the exhibit. And then I will kick it over to another staff member who works very hard on all of our gallery images. That is Crystal Lawaji. She has put together a video to music of the gallery exhibit. So just like you were walking through the building in person, you'll see his show as it's hung. And so we'll watch that video, might be about 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll come back on, toss it over to Thomas, and open it up for questions about his work. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. Let me tell you a little about the exhibit in Thomas's words. What do a puffin, a sunset, and a drag king have to do with one another? Through my camera lens, they define place in a way that I find critically important. Though this exhibit ranges wildly, from wildlife to landscape to event photography, and across a handful of states, the images in it were selected by how they define the place they were shot in. Beautiful in wild Alaska, for example, has only remained as such because of a profound respect for the care and cultivation of that beauty and wilderness. And I feel that many of my fellow Minnesotan viewers might relate to just how affecting the time spent on the shores of Lake Superior can be. One of the ways that I hope to grow my skill and portfolio is in my work with the local LGBTQ plus community, of which I am a part. When I first came to Marshall back in 2005, I would never have imagined that this city would eventually host a rapidly growing, successful annual Pride celebration. It has felt like a sea change, and one that has provided me a profound sense of welcome and belonging that hasn't always existed, and certainly doesn't exist elsewhere. I am compelled to showcase the community in my work, its joy, its success, and its importance. In Thomas's words, that is all about his exhibit. So let me tell you a little bit about Thomas. Thomas Patrick Flynn is a photographer living in Marshall, Minnesota. He is also a librarian at Southwest Minnesota State University's McFarland Library. Although his photography style is constantly evolving and has yet to settle down and take root, he most enjoys capturing images that truly represent a location. Sometimes it's a bald eagle resting atop a buoy in Alaska's Resurrection Bay. Other times it's an August sunset over Grand Marais. and perhaps more often, it's an image that represents Southwest Minnesota's LGBTQ plus community, of which he's a proud member. So that's a little bit about the work that you're going to see tonight and about the artists that you can start preparing and thinking about some questions that you'd like to ask, or just introduce yourself to him and comment on what you've seen in the video. So Thomas, you get a breather while we watch this next piece, and then we are going to open up the floor. So Crystal, you want to take it away? Just amazing work. It's always a blessing to live with artwork for the 6, 7 weeks that it's in our gallery. And Thomas's work is no exception. It is just great to come in the morning and just kind of pause at different pieces and just take them in for long periods of time. It's really great. So we encourage you to stop by the gallery and see them in person. One note that I want to point out on the video at the very end, it said that if you are interested in purchasing one of the pieces that already is marked sold, Thomas is willing to do a new print to have a new piece made. So you can just either contact us and we will connect you with Thomas. And that being said, I do want to mention that SMOC is very proud to have this gallery for the sole purpose of showcasing artists who have received a grant from us. Thomas received a grant in 2024 to purchase advanced equipment and lenses that would take his photography to a new level. And our gallery also only has solo shows. Well, I shouldn't say always, because sometimes we do duo shows, but it is meant for artists to really allow the spotlight to shine directly on them and get full exposure to all of the community and the art supporters out there that love to take a look at local art. So Thomas, we haven't even heard you talk because I talk too much. So share with us something that we don't already know.
Something you don't already know. That greatly depends on how much you actually are forced to listen to me on a daily basis. So there's a good chance that some of you on this call at least will have heard me say it already. But I don't know, kind of like I said in the bio and the preface about the show, my style and what I like to shoot and how is pretty much changing every day. My photography education has been informed by, wow, that looks really cool. I want to take a photo of it in this particular way. And so I'll go try and find a way to do that, or I'll find myself in a place that really just begs to be like captured in a particular way, and I'll do that. Which feels sometimes just about as chaotic as I probably made it sound. But when a place just sort of like speaks to me to be captured in a particular way, it kind of brings me to mind of that old like commonplace, that old stereotype. You'll hear someone say like, I fell in love with this place, right? They'll say that. But really, like I just get such good feelings when I can like photograph an event that really makes me feel that way, or be in a place that really makes me feel like that way. Like the trip that I took to Alaska, which my co-conspirator in that is on this call right now. That was, I arrived in that place and I had no idea what to expect, apart from, stories I'd heard and pictures I'd seen. But being able to just capture images of wildlife, of landscape, being able to be, on a river in a raft and look down and truly see a kaleidoscope of salmon that, like, you cannot see the depth of them, you cannot count them. It is countless. It looks like more salmon than it is water. Being in those sorts of moments and having the means to capture them, it feels like magic. It doesn't feel like it feels more like magic than it does art, or at least those two things colliding, I guess.
I will ask a question and kick us off. So everyone else is welcome to jump in. We don't necessarily have a raise your hand function or anything. You can just jump in. But I will ask the first question, and that is that in my experience, I know that artists, photographers have a range of editing styles. Some manipulate until you can't tell really what the image is to an abstract form. What is your philosophy, or what is your preference currently on how much editing you do of your work?
I don't know if I have I don't have a lot of hard and fast rules about that. Mostly I just like to play. I don't like my images to get too far away from what I remember the scene being when I was there. I might I might tone down the highlights if I want to capture more blue in the sky if it was a particularly sunny day. Like the Siskowit Falls piece that's in the gallery, I might do a like a kind of a silvery monochrome, but I don't want to change too much about like what I captured in that moment. And that even includes like, if there's a mailbox in the photo, I'm going to feel a little bad taking that mailbox out. There's a photograph of the Northern Lights that I took back in May here in Minnesota when we were lucky enough to have them this far south. And like I removed a mailbox because it was kind of in the way. But like part of me still feels a little bit bad about doing that because I changed the landscape that was present when I was there. So if there's are rules to be found in the midst of all that, I don't really know what they are. I'm not a big fan of generative AI on like ethical and artistic grounds, because I'm kind of I'm well read enough to have made myself aware of the environmental costs of that sort of technology at this point. But apart from that, I don't know if I like to play with an image in a certain way until I feel it looks better or more interesting or more fun or tells a better story than when it came straight out of the camera. Then sure, I'll do that. There's a I guess maybe it's like just feeding or speaking to my inner child that just really likes the idea of play. I don't think any of us, any of we adults, really play as often as we should. So getting the opportunity to do that in a way that, kind of like I described earlier, feels like art meeting magic in a head-on collision. It feels pretty good.
Cool. Awesome.
I was going to ask for your wildlife photos. Um, how a lot of them are very zoomed in. How close are you personally able to get, and how much is that the capability of your various lenses to zoom?
I'd say with wildlife, like regardless of how close I actually am, like there is some amount of dependence on the technology that's just required. Um, like out of all the photos that are in the exhibit right now, the goth lovebirds, they've gotten a tremendous amount of attention, and I kind of love that. Because they're maybe like the most unassuming like wildlife, the thing you could just like, I don't know, you could look out your window and see a couple crows just hanging out anytime here in Minnesota. Even those were taken at Potter's Marsh or Potter Marsh in Alaska. But out of all the wildlife that's in the show, those are the ones that I was actually probably the closest to when I photographed. But even that, I'm pretty sure that was at a 100 millimeter or maybe a little higher or longer rather focal length. So quite a distance away. Apart from my cats, which I'll occasionally photograph, I feel like the closer you get to an animal, especially a wild animal in that case, like the greater the chance that you're going to influence its behavior in some way. And this is not me commenting on like other people's photography and their practices. That's for them to decide. That's their business. But kind of in line with my philosophy, I want to capture the world and the moment as it exists there. Wild animals, they're not there to pose for me. Like if I happen to catch them doing something cool or look in a particular way and it tells a little bit of a story, that's amazing, and I'm lucky to be able to do that. But apart from that, I just like to keep my distance and take probably more photos than I know what to do with. I have very long-winded answers. I apologize.
Where's your favorite place that you've been so far? And it might be, let's say, to photograph. We'll limit it, not just your favorite place ever, but your favorite place to photograph so far. And
So
maybe then an addendum to that and future, what do you have in mind? Where would you want to go that you haven't been yet? So 2 parts.
can I provide 3 different answers?
Yes.
Okay. So the favorite place that I've been purely for photography is Alaska, hands down. No exaggeration when I said like I fell in love with a place when I was there. Absolutely true in every sense and understanding of the phrase. It was amazing. And I feel like even though I was in the same sort of relative geographic area the entire time I was there, I could go back to that area 100 more times and probably come away with 100 wildly different sets of images. That said, the other part 2, I guess, of my answer is I would be super interested in going back to the same place, but Alaska is a very large state with an enormous and expansive biome, and there are so many different places in there that I would just love to see. Like I had a colleague that I work with daily who she went to Alaska with her husband and some family members this summer. It's a completely different place than me. Came back with photos just shot on her phone, and I had a very difficult time keeping my jealousy under control. Oh my gosh, I just like it's just the urge to just like, forget this library work. We're just going to go to Alaska. Didn't make that very irresponsible choice, but the temptation was there. So I would want to go back there. I would want to photograph that again, but if not in different ways, then a different location. There's just the climate is great there, the wildlife is great there, the people are great there. But the reason I wanted to provide like a third and unexpected answer to that, I guess, is part of photographing a place is also just like the experience of the shoot, I guess. And that's why, like, even though it is what, like, I don't know, there's a big difference between wildlife landscapes and then a drag show, which made a feature in the gallery as well. I have a favorite place that I shot, and that's the state of Alaska. It was magical. But one of my most like demanding and interesting and rewarding shooting experiences was being able to be the photographer for Marshall Pride. I was on the planning committee, so I had a little bit of an in to do that, but the performers were amazing and gracious and kind people, like world-class talent. Getting to work with them was phenomenal. They were the kindest people. And the crowd was amazing. People joke sometimes, and compared to surrounding communities, like Marshall is still learning how to have fun. In some ways that's true, in some ways it's not. But seeing the city like turn out for an event like that, packed house, all the tickets sold, everybody there because they wanted to have an amazing time. As a photographer, you sort of have to fight against all of that and also fight against spotlights and people who are constantly moving. I don't think I've ever like sweat so much while I've been wearing a camera in my life. But it was an amazing experience and it was really challenging and really fun. So I kind of wanted to provide an answer on that too, if nothing else than just to sort of bridge the gap between the experience of photographing something and also like falling in love with a place based on like, the experience you can have there, the images you have there.
And
So
it's
what do
not like
you,
it's not like drag shows are really low key. They could be probably
No,
the flashiest performers on the planet Earth. So yeah.
and
So
it's an
it
interesting
was challenging.
combination.
Yeah.
It's you get fantastic performers. It is the venues, unless you watch like, I don't know, RuPaul's Drag Race, like the venues, especially in a rural area, might be great. Brow Brothers, who was our host that evening, they were great, but it's also like the back room of a bar. So like the environment, sort of, you have to learn to work in that environment. The spotlight was not one that was built into the room. It was one we wheeled in there, and we're waving it around the entire show. So it's there are a lot of parts of that shoot that are not in the photographer's favor, I'll say that, but sort of finding a way to work with that, even when it's working against you, is really, really fun. Carolyn, I didn't mean to
oh,
interrupt you. I believe
that's
were
fine.
about to speak.
What do you generally look for when you're doing photographs of people as far as creating your shot or particular people that you're drawn to? Yeah.
I just, as much as I can, I like to catch people like in the moment of doing something, which sounds creepy when I phrase it like that. Like it's not a voyeuristic thing. It's not weird. It's more or less like posing people is fine, posing people for portraiture and things like that. That's all great. But I'd much rather take photos of people who are just like in the progress of doing what they do. Like I did a small photo shoot for some friends of mine. Their family wanted a photo shoot, and we did some pose shots, and that was great. But I think probably my favorite thing that I did the entire time was just them messing around on the bright green grass out in the park. Just being able to photograph like the family spending time goofing off, having fun together. I think those were the best photos in the shoot. So when I'm photographing people, especially, just and I don't have a ton of experience this. Let me preface with that. I'm still working on getting more experience with people, but having people be comfortable enough that they can just like do their thing while you're, capturing it is my favorite part of that.
So having done this show, and I don't know if you can tell from the video, but there are some pieces that are, printed on metal, and some pieces on canvas, some pieces on acrylic. Have you made any preferences on what you like, or is it more just about the subject matter and choosing what you think fits best?
A little bit of both. I had very limited experience with acrylic or metal before the show. A little bit of experience with metal because one of the pieces that I printed last year was on metal. Um, but before that, I used like, I don't know, it was kind of an uninformed, biased opinion. I just thought like canvas was the best way to go. Everything I'd seen that was on canvas looked great. I really like the sort of like textured and dimensional effect you get from a canvas wrap. But now that I've experimented with more formats, I think it's partially dependent on subject matter. And part of it comes back to just like to play. Because for this show, I could have decided like, okay, I'll do my wildlife and my landscapes on their own respective styles, and that's how I'll differentiate them in the show. But as soon as I started putting together these prints, I was like, no, that doesn't feel very playful. And so, of course, some things are not uniform. Some things are last minute decisions where like, this doesn't look good on a 1 3/4 inch canvas. We're going to go down to 3/4, even though it costs me more. No, this is going to be on acrylic instead of metal because I don't know, I like the way this particular image looks on that. So as long as I'll probably just keep playing with different styles until I find something, that really speaks to me more than everything else. Maybe I'll get there. Maybe I won't. Maybe it'll just be continual play with different like formats. Like right now, I have this Instagram photographer that I follow who takes instant photos, but then separates like the film cell from the backing and like soaks it in a solution and gets it kind of like wrinkly and deformed, and then allows that to like position on a piece of like matte paper. And so it's like a distorted sort of image transformed through the removal of the film cell from the backing. I don't know, but the play will never end. But that said, metal prints are really, really cool. I love if you can find pieces that look good on metal, or that make you happy when they're on metal. Wow, that's a pretty striking way to see one's photography. I'm kind of tickled by it still.
And in my opinion, your drag series on metal with that ultra high gloss is perfect. That is
It looks great with the
superb.
contrast, or
Yes.
the high saturation and the high color contrast. I feel
Yeah.
metal speaks to that pretty well.
Yeah.
I just have to say, Tom, that I'm just so thankful that you did this because it allowed me to see your exhibit. And I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm glad you could be here. My co-conspirator in Alaska and my co-conspirator in northern Minnesota and Wisconsin or earlier this summer as well.
And future co-conspirator.
And future co-conspirator. I'm sure we'll find a place to get up to trouble sometime soon.
Do you take your camera everywhere you go?
I did for a while. So like photography's sort of been like a roller coaster for me. And I only really, really got deeply into it in earnest, like 4 or 5 years ago, probably. I toyed with it kind of off and on for a while, got really into it, kind of fell back, really into it, fell back. And 4 or 5 years ago, I really just like dived headfirst into it. I was really like that. And at that point, I was taking my camera everywhere. I take my camera with me a lot now, but I've also come to rely a little bit more like, the best camera that you have is the one that you have with you in the moment. There's a photography podcast that I really like that kind of stresses that like you can like the constant need to always have like the best equipment on hand to capture the shot. That's really stressful, and that's kind of a never ending, that cycle will never be complete, right? Because there's always better equipment, there's always something you could have done better, you could have had a different lens with you, whatever. Pretty soon you're lugging around 50 pounds of a camera equipment every time you go on a hike. So I got my phone, these things are pretty great. They have a camera built into them, and a lot of the photography, the principles of photography, how to use how to adjust your shutter speed, how to adjust your ISO, your focal length, things like that, how you frame and compose a shot. You can practice those with the camera that's baked into your phone. Anybody can do that. And so like, as long as your phone camera pictures make you happy, sometimes that's the best camera to have in the moment. Remember, I do long-winded answers. So the conclusion to that is I do try to bring my camera with me when it makes sense to do so, because I do want to get that shot. But I don't know. I just don't think that anybody who's here now or watching this in the future should discount their ability to capture something that really pleases with them just because they don't have the best equipment or they don't have, you know, the fanciest camera. Like the photography technology, the barrier to getting into that and practicing that and finding joy in that has never been lower. So, you know, the best camera you can have with you is the one you have, whatever you have with you.
Yes, I would, in my mind, photography is a balance of joy and work, because there is work that goes into a fine art photography piece. You know, there's a lot of work that goes into it. So if you just want the joy of being in the moment, use your phone camera, just capture the moment. But if you want to capture the moment in a professional way, you have your camera on you, your big
Yep.
camera.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Other questions?
I'll ask one that I know Nicole asks sometimes, but it's always kind of interesting to ask if you have plans in the future for certain series or certain things you want to focus on or certain places you might want to exhibit or anything upcoming in the works, I guess.
I don't know. I've sort of I'm trying to think of a way to answer that isn't like just another long-winded answer, but I'm not sure I can do it. So here I go, vroom. I'm really drawn to, I like to photograph local events. I really love photographing for Martial Pride, but I kind of want to do more like event photography, concerts, drag shows, things like that, whatever they may be, in spaces that don't really get captured as often. Because a lot of local photographers, or not local photographers, a lot of Minnesota photographers that I keep track of, that I follow, when they're photographing drag shows, concerts, things like that, they're in Minneapolis, they're in Duluth, they're in Mankato, they're in like urban centers. There were lots of people that gathered together. Nothing at all wrong with that. But I'm a country mouse, right? Like I like wide open spaces. I like rural areas. That's where I've chosen to live right now, and that's where I enjoy most. I can do like 3 days in a place as populous as Minneapolis before I start to feel a little bit like I'm vibrating out of my skin. Can't do it. Got to get out. So if I could do a series, I would want to do a little bit more traveling, like maybe in the southern half of the state, and just look for shows that aren't being captured as much. Rural concerts, rural drag shows. I don't know. Those aren't the rules. Those are just what come to mind. Just places where community is being built and progressed, and the community is being seen for who it is and what it is. And I just think that would be really fun to build a show on capturing that in places where it gets done less often. Because it would make me happy to do it. And I don't know, I would hope in my mind that if people can see their joy and their community like that captured and represented in such a way, maybe it'll mean something to somebody else too. I think that would be cool. I also admittedly do really love when, and this is like, I'm allowing my pride to speak a little bit here. When somebody finds something in one of my images or my practice or whatever, that means something different to them than it does to me. Like the picture of the salmon photo that you saw in the gallery. I have a colleague at Southwest Minnesota State University. He needed that photo and singled me out at the opening exhibit for it and told me like how that photo made him feel, that it was like, it was a good way to, it offered like such a, I guess, depth and of color and range and artistic style that it brought him a lot of peace. And I thought that was just like the coolest thing ever. Like that warmed my heart probably more than I said in the moment, being able to hear that. So I just, I don't know, when I can capture something that means something to me one way, but then someone else sees something entirely different in it. I don't know. I would like to be able to do that for places around here as well.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, Thomas. I think that if people knew that you were open and excited about capturing events in rural Southwest, I think your dance card could be very busy. Could be very
Dance
full.
card is already pretty busy, but it doesn't stop me from wanting to do it. So thank you.
Yeah, yes. And I do have ideas. So when we talk next, I think I could give you some contacts if you really wanted to do any of that pursuing on a small or a big level.
300% yes.
Okay, awesome. I talk a lot as well, so I am trying to give space for somebody else to jump in. While you're thinking about your last comments, or a thank you to Thomas, our next gallery exhibit is also a photographer. This photographer is on the spectrum of play that far exceeds Thomas's play with editing. His name is Flynn Woodbury. He's from Jackson, Minnesota. His exhibit opens on November 7th. So Thomas's closes October 25th. You only have a couple weeks left to stop in and see it in person. Furman's opens then the 7th of November and goes through December 20th. We usually run our shows about 6 to 6.5, 7 weeks, somewhere in there. Yeah. As I said, it's been a joy to experience your art every day in the office. And I am looking forward to seeing your growth. I hope that if it helps you take your artistic career to a new level, that you apply again for another grant. And SMOC is always happy to help with grants for any artist, and also happy to help with advising for some other galleries that you might want to exhibit in. We do have a list of those. So thank you all for being here. Giving some space for any final comments. Thanks
I'm
for
not going to
spending
ask
some
myself a question, but I did just want to
Yeah.
thank everybody. SMOC, the staff who work super, super hard, not just on shows like this, but all day, like every day. I know y'all are spinning so many plates at the same time, and it is admirable and fatiguing to think about. So thank you for all that you do. It is amazing. Y'all are like local art superheroes, and you make a lot of things happen that like wouldn't exist in the community without all of you. So this grant aside, which I love, and the show and exhibit aside, which I love, everything else you do is also just super important. The value is visible all the time.
You are a joy. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. As I said, this video will be available soon, in a few days, once it's edited, and it will be on our website, which is www.swmnarts.org. So check that out and check back next month for Flynn Woodbury and future exhibits. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.